Yesterday, crypto saw the biggest liquidation it's ever seen in its history, and we felt it on the altcoin charts. Relative to the altcoins, Bitcoin held up pretty well. The altcoins, on the other hand, got destroyed because they were simply filled up with so much leverage. We can see here, Litecoin dropped from 140 all the way down to 73, and this is one of the better looking charts. The only other time that I saw this happen, and I went back here, is right there. You guys can see we had a drop from $97 all the way down to 32, but the difference is that this happened within a 2-week period, whereas this time it only happened within a 1 hour period. So there's a huge difference. But I was looking at the past simply because I wanted to make sense of what's going on right now. And what I saw was every time we've had some kind of drop like this, some price action to the upside did follow. We had another one here, as you guys can see, and this happened over 3 days. So you guys can take a look at the price from 293 all the way down to about, on that first week, 150. And then we went down and we had a bounce. This was the start of the bear market. Right now, do I think we are at the start of the bear market? No, I don't, simply because Bitcoin's price remains at a very good level considering what happened yesterday. We're still at 112 grand, and the altcoins haven't moved like they did back here. We're talking about a massive move here, going about 100%. Litecoin is simply about 100% off the bottom. So these are different conditions, different set of circumstances, but it's important to identify which ones they compare to the most. And when I look at this chart and I see where Litecoin is currently at in terms of its price, I would say Litecoin is more around this area than it is around this area, simply because the gains made are nowhere near. So even though we are in a bad position and there was some serious pain out there in the crypto markets, I do think we have higher to go, because overall what happened yesterday was a leverage flush. It was resetting the system. And now there's only one place to go that's going to be the most pain for the market. As much as I hate to say it, the most pain is going to be watching these positions go higher as people have gotten liquidated for years of work. I was affected by this leverage flush too, but luckily I wasn't playing with too much leverage where it affected me to the point of no return. But I'll definitely be on the side of spot and on-chain for the rest of the cycle. It doesn't mean I'm not going to trade leverage ever again. I'm simply going to maintain a very disciplined routine with leverage where I don't risk any more than 2 to 3% of my net worth on leverage, simply because that's a healthy risk position to have with trades anyway. But I don't think anyone could have seen this coming. And like I said, Litecoin was one of the nicer charts to have dropped. This wasn't as brutal as some of the other ones. For example, if you go to Atom on Binance, you can see the drop was pretty severe with about a 73% drop all the way from 4 to sub $1 almost. And I think at some exchanges, it actually went close to zero. So there are definitely some coins out there that have taken bigger hits than others. And I was telling my Telegram chat that I had just opened a few positions yesterday even, and one of them happened to be DOT. And I talked about taking a DOT position, and it happened to get murdered as well, unluckily. So you guys can see the DOT position. I opened it at about $4, and then we had this absolute nuke, simply because when I look at this chart, I see a bottom forming around the price of about 3.5. You guys can see that. Yeah, we've got a couple of breaks down there, but for the most part, it seemed to be bottoming out around that 3.5 area. So it looked like a pretty low risk, high reward situation where we could trend towards the upside to at least $11. But then obviously the leverage flush happened. So even though this seems bad right now, I do think the max pain is to the upside. So if you have positions on chain or on spot, I think the worst thing I could do here is to sell my positions out of fear and just to write it like I did with my original plan, that we're going to move higher. We did get that bounce on Bitcoin dominance. If you guys have been following the channel, I did talk about that bounce to about 60%. We did get it. We didn't get it in the way I was anticipating. I didn't think it was going to be this aggressive, but we did get it in the end. We got that reset. So I just don't see how the market could continue trending down when all the leverage and all the incentives to go down have been flushed. Now, more so, we have a higher, healthier chance to go towards the upside if this bull market isn't over, which I don't think it is. Otherwise, I think we'd be seeing Bitcoin below 100 grand, which it did not do. It actually only went to about 103,000, and that's on Bitfinex. I think there are different prices. We have 100,000 on Kraken, and then we have some better pricing here on Bitstamp up to 110. So you can tell this is completely leverage driven depending on the platform that was used. You can see Coinbase went all the way down to 108. So all in all, again, we're just chopping sideways. That was from the tariff announcement. Bitcoin dropped, and Ethereum as well. If we just go to Ethereum, you can see went all the way down to 3.5. So even though this is looking really ugly, guys, I just don't think this is the top of the market. This was a really nasty leverage flush, but the incentives are actually there aligned to go higher, because when we have extreme times of volatility like this, like we can go back to COVID times. If you just go back to COVID times over here, which was May 2021 is right about, that's January, or I should say May 2020. I think it's right there, this area right here, where I had charted out at the time when I was trading this. So let's just remove that. This was COVID time right there. We had a massive dump, and a lot of people were scared, unsure of what was going to happen. That was a 70% dump. Now this was the second largest crypto, and we had a 7% drop. But if you guys can see, what followed after was an aggressive move towards the upside. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen for altcoins next. I'm just saying we're going to have some kind of rally towards the upside, because with events like these that come around before a rally, which we haven't really had an alt season rally, I think we can all agree with that. There has been no liquidity. What usually tends to happen is opportunity arises from the chaos and ashes that have just appeared in the market. So I'm just holding tight. I'm holding steady. Now, on-chain largely remains unaffected. It's affected by sentiment, but not by the leverage flush. So that's the silver lining. We've got some silver lining there, but we also have the spot bags looking to make a recovery. Even if you weren't leveraged, you still took a hit. It doesn't mean you got wiped out, but there are some recovery or some repair that has to happen on these charts for us to go higher. And as you guys can see, even though Litecoin have managed to put in the 73% candle, it came down to support, and now we're sitting above this support line, this trend line here. So that is the silver lining. Of course, we're going to need some time to repair this and actually move above it, but I think it's green skies ahead, because how much worse can it get? Unless this whole market is going to zero, I don't think we have much more to worry about in terms of deleveraging. We'll have to see what happens in the next coming days, the news that comes out on hedge funds or anything crypto related that involve leverage, and see who got wiped out. It might be a silver lining for us to take us higher. So overall, just sitting tight, not doing anything, holding my spot positions, holding my on-chain positions, and waiting to see what happens. I do lean towards bullish still, even though right now, the wound is open, the wound is new. I do think in the next coming days, we will get rewarded with some kind of silver lining with these charts moving towards the upside. Of course, that can change if we manage to break structure and head towards the downside and we see something like this. Then obviously this will change my perception and the idea that I have that altcoins are going to move higher. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys are doing all right out there and weren't over leveraged on the markets. But if anything, this is a good experience to make sure you're not exposed to leverage in the future, because anything like this can happen any day and wipe out years of work. So with that said, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one.